It's really difficult at this point to really define freestyling in Rocket League because of the ways in which it has changed and evolved over the past 4 years. Is freestyling something that happens in the air, for example? If so, can we really say that something like this isn't freestyling? Is freestyling just adding a bit of style and spice to a move or shot that doesn't really need it? And if so, what can we say about professional players like Gimmick and Justin who seem to play fast, competitive Rocket League while sort of freestyling at the same time? The truth is, freestyling really can't be defined as one thing because of how much it's evolved through the years. In this video, I'm going to give you sort of a tour of freestyling through the years and how and why it's changed so drastically, especially in the last 2 years. And most importantly, the key figures who've made it what it is. First, let's go way back to the beginning, before Rocket League even existed, before there was an esports scene, a YouTube scene, a Twitch community, when there was just a few insane youngsters playing a small indie car soccer game called Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket-Powered Battle Cars. To understand freestyling's earliest roots, you really have to look no farther than a few SARP veterans, players like Kronovi, Lynxi, and especially Jazer. Kronovi was probably the earliest player consistently uploading SARP content on YouTube, but Jazer was really the first person to upload a true freestyle goal in January of 2011. Kronovi did the same in February of 2011, and then in the coming years, we would start seeing clips from people like Lynxi and others. It's pretty clear what freestyling was at this time. I would define it in this, very professional, articulate way. Yeah, it's a spinny aerial, just a spinny aerial. Now, whether that's a direct side spin or a more cooksy or twisty spin, it's basically this idea of moving your car around in spinny, unnecessary ways while you're hitting the ball. Now, at this point, it's not about freestyle passing as we know it now or any other specific mechanics, basically just going up for an aerial and, adding some unnecessary spins. I think the very core of what freestyling is comes from these early moments in Rocket League's history. First of all, it's the idea that you can actually get so good at this game and have such a high level of car control that you can do normal things like an aerial or a dribble in ways that are not conventional. You can hit an aerial by flying straight at the ball, which is still difficult for most, or you can fly directly at the ball while spinning your car around like crazy. But it's also the idea that Rocket League doesn't have to just be competitive. Like, you don't always have to do the quote-unquote smartest thing in this game. You can play Rocket League in different ways, and it's possible to hit shots that are really flashy and just like really beautiful and impressive. Now, this era of freestyling and really the real roots of freestyling goes on through the end of SARP and into the beginning of Rocket League. The earliest freestylers for Rocket League are similar to that of SARP. In those 3 or 4 years, this didn't really change much from 2011 when freestyling sort of started in SARP to, the early days of Rocket League. It was still basically just spinny aerials. Like, if you look at Cooksier and Pashy uploading freestyle goals, they're basically just spinning and hitting the ball, which again, easier said than done. Most of you guys probably still can't do a lot of the things Jazer was doing 9 years ago. So if you ever watch Jazer and you feel bad, like you just feel like you're so horrible, remember he's been doing this for a long time. But I will say that one of the newer freestyle moves from Rocket League's early days was the freestyle air dribble. Now, this is obviously similar to the freestyle aerial shot, but in this case, you're actually holding the ball up with your car like a traditional air dribble while spinning your car underneath it, which is another level of car control, certainly. Again, many of you watching this video would struggle to pull off a goal like this even today, but it's okay. Again, many of you just started playing this game, and Jazer and others have been playing it for a very long time. Freestyling hadn't really changed much in these early days. Players were certainly getting better car control, but as Rocket League continued to evolve and develop and new faces entered the scene, freestyling really began to take on a different form than just solo spinny aerials and spinny air dribbles. As far as I can tell, the first freestyle team plays date back to this clip from Jazer uploaded on April 17th of 2016. Now, I'm sure people were doing it before then, but not much before then. If you watch Jazer's Freestyle Friday from April 22nd of 2016, shortly after this upload, you can see he's going for team plays while freestyling. Even though they aren't pulling off the shots in the way that they do now, now or the ways that they would later on, both players are beginning to fly off the wall together, sort of in hopes of hitting a crazy team shot. Kind of like how it would be if I tried to freestyle with someone today. In this clip, you can see Jazer say that he was trying to pass it to his teammate, even though he failed to do so. That was really the goal at this point. Now fast forward a month or so, and Jazer is putting out his Freestyle Fridays with Pulse MK, and it's clear they're still wanting to set up these freestyle passing plays. They just haven't quite got it down yet. Now through 2016 and into 2017, team freestyling really becomes the meta. From big passing plays across the field while spinning, obviously you can't do these things without spinning aerials, to floating off the same wall together and sort of like doinking the ball to each other while spinning around. Now these early days of team freestyling brought out actual freestyling teams like Nixus, which then became, I believe, Team Rise, and then that, I believe, became Pulse. I'm pretty sure Pulse came out of that in some way. In 2017, the Pulse clan put out some of the most iconic Rocket League freestyle montages, like the black and white montage. Now, I've been guilty in the past of kind of overlooking some of the other freestyle teams from that era, and today, I'm sure that I still will overlook some of them because I don't know about all of them. But yeah, some of these other teams include teams like Nitro and Nixus, which was rebooted, I guess. And, ATR is a little bit different than a team. But yeah, out of those early groups of freestylers, we began to see a new level of creativity. Players like Novel were perfecting ceiling shots in their freestyles all the way back in early 2017. Novel and others were also starting to implement these crazy ground dance moves into freestyles, but the focus was still on team freestyling and passing to each other. That was still what people were primarily doing. Now, Novel really showed another level of car control in his freestyles. Just in the way he spun his car, it was so precise and stylish and impressive. He clearly had the control and the mechanics to take freestyling to another level, and this really leads us into 2018 and the emergence of what I would call the modern era of freestyling, which is solo freestyling. Now, there are countless players who stand out from this time, influential freestylers, even people like Sting, who hit this goal way back in 2017. Now, this still was a passing play since it came from early 2017, obviously, but these kinds of shots were really the beginning of a new meta in freestyling, one that was more about mechanical skill and precision. He's doing things like stalling and flip resetting and tornado spinning all in one shot and using the ceiling. And yeah, it's a team play, but that's kind of not really the point of this shot. The first true solo freestylers are probably players like Muirie and FLuuMP, and also players like Pulsefire and Novel. But if I'm not wrong, Muirie really stands out as really the first true solo freestyler to try to actually invent shots.
The first thing I did was that trick.
What the?
That was the first trick I made for ceiling shots.
So you invented? Look, you just did it. You just
that trick. Yeah.
You just did it exactly the way you wanted to right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now this move is still one of the core solo freestyle moves, as you can see from the recent Stuxi and Muirie freestyle 1v1 from just a couple months back. Jumping off the ceiling into a backwards flip reset is now one of those core mechanics of freestyling. Another player that sticks out, like I said, is FLuuMP, and he was really the first player to consistently hit triple and even quad flip resets chained together. Now, if you think about this skill, hitting multiple flip resets in a row, you can't achieve something like that without spending hours and hours alone in free play or in custom training, just practicing and perfecting it. And this is really a new way of freestyling. It's not really about getting in unranked and screwing around with a friend or something like that. It's about practicing specific mechanics in hopes of doing something incredible. And I remember when I recorded this video with Muirie a while back, I didn't really understand this idea of solo freestyling, and I didn't really understand what he was, that he was a solo freestyler. And I wanted us to just go in unranked and set up these crazy freestyle passing plays. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to do it. But then it turns out he doesn't really know how to do it either, at least at that time. I'm sure he does now more so, but his thing was just going in and doing something creative by himself. And I remember thinking, this is kind of a different way of freestyling, and turns out it ended up being really the new meta. Obviously, we can look at also players like Ganer and LED and DLG, all freestylers who took things like air dribbling and flip resetting to another level, to an even greater height. freestyling has become such a broader concept. Players like Avampel, who kind of stopped working on flip resets, they've taken things like dribbling and, sort of freestylish dribbling to new heights. I never thought that someone could have this kind of control of the ball on the ground. Today, freestyling is all about creativity and precision, not only doing new mechanics and new shots, but perfecting those shots in ways that make no sense to players like myself who just don't have the time and commitment and probably not the natural ability to do things like this. Today, the freestyling meta is all about creativity, from, musty flicking your opponents to drifting underneath the ball over and over again, to doing whatever this madness is that Novel is up to these days. Like, what in the world? And also some of the stuff that people like Den and Rezi and Fire, like these players, they don't even make sense what they're doing. Regardless, the heart of what it means to freestyle hasn't changed since Rocket League's early days. It's meant to make you feel awe. I really think Rocket League has no ceiling when it comes to creativity. I personally just feel like doo-doo because I'm trying to figure out how to hit double flip resets while these guys are out here doing just insane things like this. The last thing I want to touch on is the influence that freestyling has had on Rocket League as a whole. I don't think that when Rocket League first came out, and especially in its first few seasons of RLCS, that we could have ever imagined seeing players hit the kind of shots in competitive play that we see now. Players like Justin and Gimmick, they play competitive Rocket League with a sort of freedom that almost mimics freestyling, to the point where you can't always tell if they're actually making the best decisions when they choose to spin all over the place during, say, an aerial or a solo play. At the heart of freestyling is this idea of playing free, or just letting all of your skills and your mechanics, all the things that you've worked on over the years, to just take over. Sometimes this means you play solid and grounded, and sometimes it means that you go for crazy shots. And in competitive play, we found that both can work at the highest level. But I'm excited personally to see what's next for freestyling. I've put links in the description below for you guys to check out these freestylers, the ones that I've mentioned. Many of them are still active, still uploading things on YouTube, so make sure to check them out. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a good week, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.